Thank you very much, Robot Lady. And I'll pass over to Martin to start this evening's training. Thanks, folks.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Uh, okay. And thanks everybody for turning up. Uh, this is going to be a session in which we improve Wikidata, learn the basics of contributing knowledge to Wikidata. It's the first of two sessions. So tonight we're doing sharing knowledge on Wikidata about any topic you're interested in. And next week is about getting information out of Wikidata and about kind of querying, asking questions. Some of you are probably, well, I know some of you are very experienced in Wikipedia and other Wikimedia projects. Some of you may be coming to Wikimedia for the first time. You're not already Wikipedia editors. Maybe some of you are already working with databases in some capacity. Maybe you're doing coding, and some of you are not. So I'm going to pitch this session at quite a basic level. Even if you've got a background in databases, which I have, Wikidata is different in some important ways. So you've got to think a bit differently. And so we're going to ease into the topic of how Wikidata works. And I think that'll benefit, again, if you're a complete newcomer or even if you're doing this kind of stuff in your job. So yeah, sharing knowledge. That's what we're going to be doing. There is some presentation. There'll definitely be opportunity for questions and discussion. I've left it quite open, but also there'll be activities that you will do following your own interests, or if you don't feel inspired, we'll have default things you'll have activities you can do, and then you can kind of feedback in the chat, whatever. Tell us how you got on. So we've booked 2 hours for this session. It's not 2 hours of me talking, don't worry. But I'll ease into the initial presentation. Because some of you are very involved in Wikipedia. We all consult Wikipedia a great deal. And if you're aware of Wikimedia, you know our mission is to create a summary of all human knowledge and give that away for free. And it's easy to think, well, we know what that is. That's Wikipedia. Got some paragraphs here from a Wikipedia article. But Jimmy Wales himself said the encyclopedia is one book in the library. It's one approach to sharing knowledge. And knowledge doesn't just take the form of a wall of text. There's knowledge that needs to be conveyed with context and with nuance and to be guided through the story, guided through the different arguments about something. But there are other forms of knowledge than just text. Lots of knowledge is pictorial. It takes the form of diagrams or maps or photographs or visual art. That's an important part of knowledge. We collect images. We encourage people to share images, not just to illustrate Wikipedia and make it look nice, but that's a valid form of knowledge. And another type of knowledge that's important to share is what I'd call structured knowledge, knowledge that fits into slots. We're familiar with this, even if you've never been to a database or Wikidata, you see info boxes, say at the top of a Wikipedia article with kind of the key facts and figures about a topic. Maybe at the top, when you do a search, the top of the search results will be some key facts and figures. Increasingly crowded out by the AI summary, but that's a different thing. So these have different strengths. They're different aspects of the all knowledge that we're trying to share. I said there are things that nuances you can put in an essay or a biography or historical article that you can't just get in data. And data involves putting things into categories and assuming that there's a label for something and that everything be fitted in some options. So that has disadvantages, especially when you try to put artistic movements into data, or you try to put people into data. Trying to categorize people, well, there'll always be complexity to human life, and to people, it doesn't fit exactly in the boxes on a form. So we're always mindful of that having facts and figures in the database has particular strength, it has particular weaknesses. but it's worth doing and it enables some things. I'll show you some of the things. Firstly, what is in Wikidata? Could be people, could be cats. I'll just give an example of a cat. Could be places on the world's surface or places in other worlds. Professionally, I'm putting lots of art into Wikidata. So artworks, artifacts, physical objects, organizations, political companies, creative works. So there are people obsessed with video games and making Wikidata good for video games. There are people obsessed with films, or maybe the films a particular actor is in and want that to be really complete on Wikidata. Some people want all of the books by a particular author to be represented in Wikidata. And the obsession of all those different nerds contributes to Wikidata being really good and useful for all of us. There are scientific projects that take it really seriously. So data about proteins, genes, species, tree of life information, about diseases and pharmaceuticals and symptoms and bodily organs and other molecules. The data sets about those things in Wikidata are really important. They're literally used by scientists doing leading edge research. And it doesn't have to be real things. So you can talk about fiction, fictional worlds, the contents of books, mythology, folklore, all that kind of stuff. If you're obsessed with it, one outlet for that obsession is documenting those things on Wikidata with the key facts about each one and how they relate to each other. So Wikidata is all about relations between things. And if you've been trained on databases the traditional way, and you learned SQL or SQL, however you want to pronounce it, this is mind-blowing. I'll say this for the people who aren't from a database background, that one database can do all this is quite a mind shift. The old way, the database had to be designed for what kind of data it was going to have. So a shop with its invoices and customers, and a library with its books, and a museum with its art catalogs, and a scientific database, those would all be designed in totally different ways. And there would be no way to take information from one and put it in another. And there'd be no uniformity. So different museums might be cataloging paintings, but have different structures in their database. You couldn't even copy data from one to another. But there's this new generation of databases that you can put anything, they can describe anything, and they can be geographical, biographical, bibliographic at the same time. So if you're not from a sort of codey database background, you might think, well, that's sensible, that's how it should work. If you're from a traditional background, if you're used to coding databases, this is revolutionary. And it's not just Wikidata. Wikidata is one of a whole family of platforms called a knowledge graph, that are used by public bodies, used by the tech giants. Facebook has one, Google has one, used by organizations like the BBC, by Parliament, like I say, scientific research. Wikidata is ours. It's the one you don't have to be a member of anything or an employee of a company to edit. We, the community, choose what's in it. What do people do with all these data? There's so many examples, and they cover arts, science, and culture. So it's hard to pick what's the representative use of Wikidata. I really like, and of course they're going to be slow because it's a live demo. So things are always slower in a live demo. This is not usually that slow. So yeah, this is a database. This is an interface that lets you explore some huge number. It's millions of artworks of different types. So 200,000 paintings, 50,000 drawings. By type, by institution, by genre, like landscape art, portrait art, which collection they're in, what creator. So you might be interested in a particular artist and all of the art they've done. So this is free. The data of Wikidata being freely available and the images on Wikimedia Commons being freely available make it easy for a programmer to create something like this. They just have to create an interface. Um, so apps and sites with huge amounts of content that would have taken years of development and would have taken a team of employees not long ago are now relatively easy to do. I think Krotos that we just looked at was made in one day at a hackathon. Monumental is a similar thing. You put in show me Bristol City and Southwest. Hopefully it's going to show me, yeah, monuments. There's 9 languages. So it's this similar content to Wikipedia. And in fact, it's using the first paragraph of Wikipedia article, but it's focused particularly on the monuments and their properties and highlighting photographs of them, and you can navigate about. There's scientific applications. So this is a graph of the most prominent researchers on COVID-19. So each of these dots is a researcher. And if there's an arrow connecting them to another researcher, that means they co-authored a paper. So there's scholarly analysis tools. There are scholarly analysis tools which are run by the big publishers, but they're using that publisher's database of research, which is usually paywalled research. This is totally open, and again, you can have analyses of a topic or a researcher or a university, and this is all open data, no restriction. I really like the example of image gallery of self-portraits of women, and because this highlights why having structured data is good. Imagine you wanted to compile a gallery of self-portraits of women, and this didn't exist. Well, you could go to lots and lots of Wikipedia articles, thousands and thousands of Wikipedia articles looking for women artists, and then for each one, look if they did a self-portrait, or maybe you'd go to the museum or gallery websites, and then, well, you couldn't just search for self-portraits by women. You probably have to search for artists and maybe filter for women artists and then look for each one. Did they do a self-portrait? Which not always going to be titled self-portrait. Maybe it's titled something else. That would be years of work. And that's something you might legitimately want to do for a research project. Or again, just an interest, just a fascination in this topic. Or maybe you're interested in writing about these people on Wikipedia, and you're looking for some basic information or some interesting people. So you can get an answer to that question in seconds from Wikidata that just getting it from text in Wikipedia or getting it from primary databases, it's just not humanly possible to get the hundreds or thousands of answers. Another example that I've used is all of the organizations founded by graduates of a university. So the World Wide Web Consortium was founded by Tim Berners-Lee. Tim Berners-Lee studied at Queen's College. Queen's College is part of Oxford University. Could we get all of those organizations? And then could we get connections between them? You could get the information reading a huge chunk of Wikipedia, tens of thousands of articles, or you can get it in seconds by asking Wikidata. So that's the advantage of having knowledge in a structured form that a computer can look through millions of properties in a few seconds. If you're a Wikipedian, you're probably aware of red lists. Red lists are articles, are lists of articles that maybe should exist on Wikipedia but don't. So they're lists of people. We'll look at a red list of paintings later on, but these I'm going to show you a red list of people who might be notable. You do a check that they are documented before creating an article about them. But all of these are labeled WD. So women psychologists, WD, this will give me a list of women psychologists that it knows of, and it knows some facts about date of birth, nationality, and so on, that maybe they deserve a Wikipedia article. So adding information to Wikipedia, sorry, adding information to Wikidata is maybe a first step in getting more representation on Wikipedia or measuring representation on Wikipedia. We might want to look at people who have Wikipedia articles and compare them to some basic facts. What era did they live in? What countries are they from? To look at cultural gaps and maybe where we should put more effort into Wikipedia. So improving Wikidata, making it more complete, more full of facts is a basis for that. There's so many uses. There's new uses every week for Wikidata. And those tech giants I mentioned are harvesting it. Wikidata does influence those Google knowledge graph info boxes, like the key facts that appear at the top of search results. And this is a completely different technology from AI. I suspect a lot of you understand this. It's worth spelling out that in a way it's an opposite to LLMs, the technology underlying chatbots. That LLMs have sucked in huge amount of text from the web or from scanned books, and they don't represent facts as stuff, but fact-like knowledge arises from a huge amount of text and the statistical properties of that text. The text will include jokes, sarcasm, hyperbole, and that's why some of the factual stuff can go a bit wrong. That's why ChatGPT recommended that if you're making a pizza, you need a glue to stick the pepperoni onto the pizza, because somebody said that on social media as a joke, and it was harvested and it's regurgitated by chatbots. So what we're doing on Wikidata isn't analyzing text, not getting a computer to analyze the text. We're interpreting some source, some kind of source information and distilling it down to a fact, and then creating a fact in Wikidata to represent that. And then we do that billions of times, and then we have a knowledge base. We have a representation of the world. There is an experimental chat interface to Wikidata. I recommend bookmarking this for another time or experiment later. I think it did work quite quickly when I tried it just now. 24 hours ago, it was very dodgy. But it's a chat interface. So it's as easy to use as a chatbot. You just tell it in human language what your question is, but it's not surveying a huge amount of text. It's turning your question into code for Wikidata, asking Wikidata the question, and then turning Wikidata's response code back into human language for you. So it's retrieving facts, but it's not hallucinating facts. It can claim to be knowledge because it's from a knowledge base, because it's from a set of statements that can be cited, can be referenced, can be tracked to some sort of reliable source. And yeah, the best technology, somebody asked me the other week, is there some computer program that can take a load of text and extract the facts into a database? And the experience with ChatGPT and so on says no, that those things don't distinguish humor, sarcasm, hyperbole, all those different things. They can mistake facts. So the best technology you have to do this is you. It's a human being reading a piece of text, deciding what fact that text supports, and then explicitly putting that fact into the database. But I said it requires a shift in thinking. Whether you've not done databases before or you have done databases before, it's a different approach to representing knowledge. And in a way, it's simple in it because all knowledge in Wikidata and other databases of its type are represented in triples. So a triple, so it's three things. It's an item, an identifiable thing, the property, and then the value of that property. Here's a bunch of examples. So there's an identifiable thing, the property of that thing, and then the value that it has. So height can be a property, and then the value of that height will be a measurement, a number plus a unit. A date, birth date, death date, start date, end date. Those are all properties. Their values will be a particular date and a particular calendar. Coordinate location is a property, so the value will be a latitude and longitude, a point on the Earth's surface. Often, the value is another item. So if you're talking about family trees, family relationships, you might have the item being a person, and then the property is like married to, sibling of, child of. So, and then the value will be another person. And that person will have properties. And so just with a lot of triples, you can build up a whole family tree. And there's a lot of work going on doing that in Wikidata. What else to say about triples? Yeah, context. I wanted to point out now that there are tens of millions. There's over 100 million items on Wikidata. And anyone can create one. You might create or improve one later this session. So that's something up to the individual. It's so long as there's something notable, that as long as there's knowledge about it, that's in some sort of reliable source, you can create an item. And so the items are those things in the first column, the kind of identifiable things I've mentioned, can be people, places, organizations, can be real, can be fictional, but they've got to exist in some sense. The properties are the second column. These are what can we say about the things in the first column? Dates, places. So those are controlled by a community decision, and there's mere thousands of them, not tens of millions. So we decide what kind of knowledge do we want Wikidata to represent? What kind of properties do we want to have in our database? What's going to be a reliable source for that property? Is it kind of a meaningful property that's not just somebody's reaction? Yeah, does it count as knowledge? And you're not expected to know what the properties are. We'll look at how you find out what the properties are, because obviously that's key to what knowledge you can represent. But I wanted to address context because, yeah, there are other things about properties. So triples can have their own properties. Sunday, I think this is the first information I looked up on Wikidata, and I was impressed at how cleverly this is handled. Sunday is named after the sun. Yes, in English, but not in French, not in a lot of other languages. So we can qualify that statement, say it's true in certain circumstances. David Cameron, Prime Minister of the UK, actually is a fact. We regard that as a fact. It's just a fact that was true in a particular time in the past. So we give that start time and end time, but we regard that as a fact. And then an important kind of triple is that the triple is based on something. It's sourced to something external. So we're saying how we know that's true. How do we know that that is a fact? So these first two things are called qualifiers. They're giving context. They're saying under what circumstances, when and where is this true? And then the last type of thing is called a reference. It's how do we know this is true? How do we verify that it's true? So I've given you a quick, I'll give you this example, and I want to open up possibly discussion and questions. But this is the result of asking Wikidata to show me everything, to show me relations between things called sandwich. So there are things that are missing here. This is not showing you qualifiers. This is not showing you references. this is not showing you the vast bulk of what is on Wikidata, but I'm just asked, give me the relation between things called Sandwich. Sandwich is a town in, I believe, Kent, or sort of, it's near the south coast of England. There's a noble title, which is the Earl of Sandwich. There is someone who historically held that title, so he was known as Sandwich. And then there's putting food between two slices of bread, and that is supposedly named after him. Uh, this shows that, so this other thing up here, it's called John Montague, 4th Earl of Sandwich, same name as this thing, but it's not the same thing because this is a painting. This is the man who was painted. So, yeah, this is the man, this is the portrait. So distinguishing between things which have the same name but are different, that's an important function of Wikidata. And then, yeah, the Sandwich Islands, named after him. Even this, which is a fast food restaurant, is named after the Earl of Sandwich. There should be probably some triple connecting the Earl of Sandwich. Presumably they're served sandwiches, so we could possibly do a triple between that. So, but notice all of these are triples, meaning each arrow starts somewhere, has a type of like what property it expresses, and then it goes somewhere. So you can have quite complicated relations, like this is a painting of the guy who named the South Sandwich Islands. Some quite complex multi-stage things you can break down into triples. And each of these triples are a very simple fact, but you can put a lot of them together and it gives you a representation of the world or of history or of culture or of a fictional world. And also note some of these items, each node in this graph is an item. Some of them are individual things. This is an individual painting of an individual person who had a child who was an individual son. Some of them are types of thing, like sandwich. Sandwich isn't an individual thing, it's a type of food. Painting isn't an individual thing, it's a type of visual artwork. But they're all represented in Wikidata. So we represent the individual thing and the types of thing. And there's different knowledge about those types of stuff. So a sandwich is made with bread. We say that could be represented in Wikidata. Painting is a kind of visual art form. We could say that. It's two-dimensional. That's knowledge that could be in Wikidata. So I've given you my quick introduction to triples, and thinking in triples is the basis of working successfully with Wikidata, both putting information in, getting information out. I want us to do an exercise where we think of a triple. I'm not going to restrict you to things that would be in Wikidata or another database. Properties, anything you like. The item can be you. You could talk about your own family, or just something you're researching, or something you're interested in, or something you know about in your job, something you've studied. So it doesn't have to be encyclopedic knowledge, but could be. Like I said, it doesn't have to be the real world. Could be fiction, could be a TV show you've watched, could be the relations between the characters, their enemies, their family, their, I don't know. Think of something obscure, then all the better. But think of it. If you're already used to this, because maybe you're already using some Wikidata or a similar project, give me something odd and obscure. Then, if that's easy, think of another triple connected to it. So sandwiches are named after Sandwich. Sandwich was so called because he was from the town of Sandwich in Kent. You can make a chain of triples. You can make a kind of a flower of triples. You can consider one thing and have different properties of it. But so I'll give you 5 minutes to think of a couple of triples. And if this seems like easy, just think of an odd, obscure example. What's the most unusual knowledge you could represent with a triple? Or the most significant? What's the most world-shattering knowledge you could represent with a triple? Yeah, I'll pause and let people think about that in a few minutes. Yeah, you report it in the chat. And yeah, I can't see the chat from my view. So I'll ask Sarah to.
I shall read some out when we get some in there,
Sure.
when we get some in the chat. Thank you, Donald. Donald's example is this meeting was organized by Sarah Thomas. Sarah Thomas works for Wikimedia UK.
That's great. You're thinking in triples. That's great. Yeah, it doesn't have to be encyclopedically notable. That's a really good example.
I am definitely not notable enough for a Wikipedia article.
I think my most interesting triple that I used was Lord Byron being the parent of Ada Lovelace, because I learnt about that link after I learnt about those two people. Lord Byron, the most famous of the Romantic poets, fighting against the rationalism and scientific thinking uh, they're kind of opposed to, and then Lovelace being regarded as the first ever computer programmer. So Lord Byron, occupation poet, Ada Lovelace, occupation or translator, but translator, mathematician, arguably computer programmer. I would have put those two people in just different eras of history. Maybe I just don't know enough history, but that seems to me quite shocking that those two things are linked in that way.
As a Wikimedian and an English literature graduate, I've always been way more interested in Ada Lovelace.
Right.
Oh, Johanna has a good one. Moomin is an instance of a fictional character, and a Moomin lives in Moomin Valley.
Great.
Ooh. And Kirsty has diabetic ketoacidosis, smells like pear drops,
That's
which
oh,
true.
oh so I hope that means you've attended Lucy Moore's
Yes.
session about adding smell. All right, that's advanced Wikidata stuff. But yes, that's a great example of when you add a property, yeah, that hugely expands what knowledge you can express. And if you miss out certain kinds of property, you miss out things associated with certain senses and experiences, then yeah, you make it impossible to share some kinds of knowledge. So it's worth having community debate about the properties, what kind of properties should they be, what should they be called. Um, uh, yeah, and there should be diverse voices in those discussions,
Yeah.
diverse in their interests and academic pursuits, but yeah, what kind of things I want to represent.
Ooh, Karen's got a good one. Solar eclipse being an event that, an instance of an event that occurs between three space bodies: sun, source of light for Earth; moon, source of reflected light from the sun; Earth, planet circulating the sun; moon, circulating the Earth. There's qualifiers and all sorts in there. I love that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Eric,
So
oh,
um,
sorry.
connection between three things are hard to do in triples.
Mm,
But so you've got great examples there in that, yeah, moon orbits Earth, Earth orbits sun. So those are triples. Um, a solar eclipse is those three things in a particular spatial configuration. That's not in itself a triple because there's three things and a property, but you could have, yeah, a solar eclipse involves the sun, solar eclipse involves the earth, solar eclipse involves moon or lunar
mm,
eclipse, whichever way you want to do it. Um, and then qualify that your solar qualifies it there. So some things seem like a simple bit of knowledge that you can represent as a triple. And then you catch, oh, it can't be done as a triple itself, but it can be broken down into triples. Maybe a graph like I just showed with the sandwich example.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but
I'll
oh,
give
I
us
like the way you're thinking. Yeah, I like all of you.
and I'll give us one last one from Eric. Usnea longissima, instance of lichen, and U longissima, red list character category in Sweden, vulnerable.
Great. Oh, so and that's a potential qualifier
Mm,
because there are, yeah, different status. I suppose there's different um yeah, registers of species and they're endangered or threatened or whatever state the red list. So yeah, if there are national red lists, you could scope, you say qualifier on this particular red list is endangered. That's great. I'm convinced this audience is already thinking in triples. I needed to do the exercise to make sure you were uh, thinking in triples. So I will proceed. Um, maybe you've already looked at Wikidata before. Uh, maybe not. We're going to just look at some Wikidata items now for examples of what kind of properties does Wikidata use. I'll start off with a simple example because I was at a conference recently, and this person I know about from because she's a science communicator, and so I've followed her on social media for a long time. She gave a good talk about data and the importance of data and the importance of kind of public ownership of data. And I thought, oh, what's her? Is she on Wikidata? And she wasn't. And that just seemed hugely ironic. She's a published scholar, um, worked in academia and the private sector, um, but completely unknown, not only to Wikipedia, she probably, I don't know if she deserves a Wikipedia article, but she definitely deserves a Wikidata item. So I created this, which is quite simple. So this is the researcher. Where has this person worked? What field have they worked in? What have they done? The first thing, if you're talking about a person, is instance of human. Any individual thing is going to need an instance of. I mentioned that items can be either an individual instance of something or the type of something. So every Wikidata item needs either an instance of statement, could be instance of painting, instance of human being, instance of protein, or it could be subclass. So for type of things, you have stuff like a sandwich is a type of food. Um, Sliced bread is a type of bread, I suppose. Um, so the first statements that I put in, and recognize these are triples. So I mentioned the triple has three parts. It's the item, the identifiable thing, which is, and then the property, and then the value of that property. So each of these things is called a statement, and it is a triple that we've just been talking about with reference. And so that the first statements you put in about something will be really basic about what it is. Slightly closer. Like a human of gender female. we use this property, sex or gender, and some people will go, oh, well, those are two different things. That's problematic. And yes, it is. The Wikidata community acknowledges that this is a really complicated thing. Some people, and kind of the least worst property we can have is this thing called sex or gender. For some people, this can be really complicated property, and you can look at examples of that if you like. But for most from a historical figures, there's just a straightforward way to answer this. So it goes back to what I said at the start, that human life can be very complicated and difficult to fit into tick boxes. From the fact that this person's name is Kundu, her family name is Kundu. So that gives us another property. I found this, it's not her own social media, it's a profile at the Royal Institution. So that's a source that's independent of her, that talks about her career, gives her basic information. So this is the source to a lot of this, that she is a scientist, she's a science communicator who works in nanochemistry. Some of these employments I got from her LinkedIn, which is self-published source, but I expect it's true, but I probably should have put references in there. Helpful to have someone's website and social media all in one place to kind of tell Wikidata, but tell all the things that draw from Wikidata, tell Google that all of these different profiles are the same person. But the important one here is ORCID. This is the Open Research Contributor ID. And if we go to this page, this shows that she's been employed at these institutions, but it links to her peer-reviewed papers and scholarly publications. So this shows that this is a notable person for Wikidata. Just having social media doesn't make someone notable Wikidata, but this is someone who's notable as an author of research. And so maybe the most straightforward way to get onto Wikidata is to have an ORCID. An ORCID's a free to register, but you've got to have some sort of publications, some works you can put in. So this is a reliable source. This isn't from the person herself. This is from scholarly databases to show that she has published research. So the existence of that gave me the confidence, oh, she deserves to be in Wikidata. And again, this profile on the Royal Institution of whatever it was. So that was quite quick to do. It's not at all like making a Wikipedia article. It's not going to be seen by as many people as a Wikipedia article, but it's straightforward to create. No one's going to delete this because notability is really easy to establish. Notability is easier to establish for Wikidata. It's a lower standard than for Wikipedia. And then you don't have to get into arguments about what adjectives you're using. Do you describe as an innovator, a leading communicator, someone who's made a breakthrough? Is that the wrong kind of language? You don't get into those arguments at all because I'm not putting anything evaluative in. It's all checkable facts. But her being now in Wikidata means that she'll turn up in the Wikipedia red lists for female scientists. And so people interested in creating Wikipedia articles on female scientists will see her, she'll pop up in the list, and people can take a look and decide if she's notable for Wikipedia. Maybe she's not. So that's quite a simple example. A lot of the properties there relate to social media. If we look at the moon, good that the moon has already been mentioned in this session. And we'll see if eclipses are mentioned here. But it's worth looking at if you're interested in science, celestial bodies, pharmaceuticals. Find an example, and find a well-known example. It's likely to have lots of triples in Wikidata, and look what kind of properties it has. So connecting to an image, this will stand for the moon in any kind of visualization made by Wikidata. That's probably a mistake, native label, because I don't think the moon has an official language or original language. So that's probably a mistake. I mentioned named after that in some languages we have to put a qualifier for what things are named after. Um, Coordinate location. I don't know why that's there. It's it's not on the Earth. Um, so physical abilities, properties, who studies it, parent astronomical body. So we had that in the example. So Earth's parent astronomical body would be the sun. We've got facts and figures and numbers. Maybe it's uh, temperature described by source. So a lot of information in Wikidata is about this. What sources describe a thing? This is really helpful. We're then going to improve the Wikipedia article about a thing. So which chapters in these various encyclopedias discuss the moon? Try and scroll in a way. Oh, has characteristics, quite a vague triple, but I should mention that there could be multiple triples with the same item, the same property, but different values. That is a feature of Wikidata and not of the way other to the old kind of database is done. So and these can even contradict each other. Sometimes you're doing historical figure and you've got one source that says their birth date was 1739 and another book says they're born in 1720s. And you don't know, they're both kind of decent books, but they disagree. You can put in both values and you say one is referenced to one source and this other date is referenced to this other source. You leave it there. You don't have to build a completely logical, contradictory model of everything. You can just say this source says one thing and this other source says a different thing. And then it's up to the code, the different services that read Wikidata to decide what to do with that, to decide with those contradictions. So there's lots of physical properties. There's kind of knowledge significance. There's kind of identifiers. These are identifiers in national libraries. So the index of a national library will have concepts like the moon, the earth in it. So, and Wikidata will point to all of those. So say these thousands of different knowledge systems, databases, whatever they are, library catalogs. Here are the entries about this one concept in all of those thousands of different systems. So it's like a hub. It's joining together loads of different sources of knowledge by concept, by topic that relate to the same thing. So that's a really valuable thing to make the web better and to make it easier to find knowledge. So, but that was a science thing, and someone had to look at for work or writing a paper about Wikidata that this is particularly rich. The Wizard of Oz. Lots of details about how it was made, its connection to other works. So it's based on a book, and there are other films and dramas based on it. A 3D version. There's its country of origin, its original language. Then its cast, who made it, writers. So the things you kind of have in Internet Movie Database. But also awards it's run, recognition. So recognition's an important part, writing about people. If they've won an award and that award is sort of public information, you share that. Aspects of the fictional universe. So we've had aspects of how the film was made, aspects of the fictional universe, and then all kind of ratings, awards. And again, identifies in other systems. What other kinds of knowledge, other knowledge systems have information about this thing that we can go and look at? I'm going to give you quickly a task of find a thing you're interested in, look at the properties, take note of the properties. Like I said, you can't be expected to know what properties Wikidata uses or what the properties are called. And you don't have to be doing this in English. So if you're comfortable in other languages, you can just change your interface language in Wikidata. It's a multilingual site, and you'll see the same properties, the same items, the same facts, but described in labels and other languages. But search for something that's well known. So I just gave the example of the moon, pretty well known. The Wizard of Oz, that's a very well known, very celebrated film. And because those things have lots of statements, lots of triples, you get to see lots of examples of properties. And then you think about what kind of properties could another celestial body have or another film have. Um, yeah, see what the properties are called, maybe even note down. And I'm interested in feedback. Sometimes people are blown away by how much information there is in Wikidata. Sometimes people go for quite a well-known thing and there's disappointingly little said on Wikidata about that thing. So again, I'll give you a few minutes just to explore. Maybe if you write Wikipedia articles, look at the Wikidata item for something you've written a Wikipedia article about. And is there much in the Wikidata article? Are there does the Wikidata item tell you much about the topic, or does it just point you to the Wikipedia article? In fact, maybe this is the time for a comfort break, Sarah. That's yeah.
Yes, that's my timer was just about to say. Yeah, maybe like a short 5 minutes.
Yeah. So we're going to take a few minutes just to let you get a drink or take a break away from screen. What you need to do. We'll come back and then answer this.
Start the recording. Cool.
So yeah, I wanted to give people a chance to ask questions, kind of what we've been talking about, like what Wikidata is and what we've been trying to do. If you want to go in any other direction about it, we're going to come on to improving Wikidata. So far, we've been kind of exploring, looking how Wikidata represents knowledge, and just yeah, if there's anything people want to ask about that.
Oh, Kirsty Ross is saying playwright doesn't appear to be a property you can use on humans.
So,
I'm
what's
going
the
to say
property?
that's playwright. I'm going to say that's probably under occupation.
Exactly, yeah. So this does come back to thinking of triples. So playwright isn't a property; it's a value. So one triple could be William Shakespeare occupation playwright, or could be notable for play. That would be a triple. William Shakespeare playwright isn't a triple. So every triple has the thing, the property, and then the value. Um, so you definitely can attach the calling of playwright to people. You just have to do it in the right way, in the triple that Wikidata expects.
Yeah.
And that's a different way from writing English sentences, and it's a different way from other kinds of things we do with computers and databases. So it's a bit hard to get used to.
And also another one that I think is probably in the same region there. Looked at the first from Karen, looked at the first person I wrote about, and occupation and the property city council was marked as incorrect. So that might be if Agnes was maybe a city councillor, then it would be maybe the
Exactly. Yeah,
occupation
yeah,
councillor. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, there are, I think your point there, Martin, that it's different from the way we think about it in English, and the structure is a little bit different. I know when I first learned Wikidata, it took me ages to get my head around how am I supposed to
yeah,
know what properties are
yeah.
the ones that you use and where they look at. For me, that was the biggest learning point then.
So you could have employer as a property, And so you could have a given person, employer, Birmingham City Council, and then you could have start and end dates for that. And you could kind of build up a CV, a picture of someone's career. But that would be how employer would link a person to a particular council. And then Birmingham City Council, another triple would be instance of city council. So you've got the individual thing and the type of thing. But also you could have occupation. So you could have this individual person, occupation, councillor or local politician or representative. That's how you'd represent that. So, and helpfully, there are lots of things built into Wikidata that to kind of look for maybe you've put in the wrong kind of thing as a value, or you've used a property not quite the intended way. And it will be a kind of a warning, like a slash or an exclamation mark against it. And it's frustrating, but it's trying to help you. It's trying to help you represent the knowledge in a way it's consistent with how it's represented all across Wikidata.
Ooh, and another question, how would we express the triple Roy Williams, playwright, won the Alfred Fagan Award, is the property winner?
Okay, so that's a few different triples. This so this is a person, so instance of human. So you wouldn't have somebody being an instance of a playwright or instance of a counselor, because the instance of is like what they are essentially, what they are from when they were born. So it's a human being for a person. Other things might be like fictional human or the organization, whatever. So it's winning an award. So there's a property for award received. So and that can be qualified with the year. So when somebody's won the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2000, you can say that person award received the Nobel Peace Prize. That's a triple. And then a qualifier on that is point in time, the particular year. So you can describe a person. Yeah, it might be very simple, like a human being whose first name is Roy, whose gender is male, and then you very generic. Then you go into more specific things like occupation, employed by, maybe employed by different time periods, and then you do particular achievements like won a particular award in a particular year.
We have one more in the chat, which is from Eric. If an item is added as a value, will the connection show up on the page for the item?
It's a really good question.
Mm.
There's two ways to make that connection visible. I go back to okay, let me grab Sue's Kundu again. At the side of the screen, it's in the Tools menu, which I've got closed just to make things easier. There's what links here. Yeah, what links here? So this will be additional knowledge about this person, which is not displayed in this page, because all of these triples are triples with this person as the first item. But Eric was correct that sometimes the item is the third, it's the value, it's the third part of the triple. So if I click what links here, okay. So here are two of her publications. So these are identifiable things that are in a database. I can prove they exist. So I think they already existed on Wikidata. So they have their own properties. But this one has so once I created the representation of this person in Wikidata, then I could add her as an author to her publications. So that's a bit clumsy, but it's worth doing that occasionally, clicking what links here. There is a separate application called Reasonator. What um, I have got a gadget like customization in my view of Wikidata, which makes a link to Reasonator, but I've deactivated it for this session because I want my screen to look like your screen if you're new. Oh, no, it is here. I haven't fully deactivated it. Okay. There's an application called Reasonator, and you can think of this as a Wikidata browser. So it will get all of the knowledge about a topic, not just what Wikidata is displaying you, like the triples with that topic as the first item. So I can browse from here, and so now this gives me a kind of nicer to look at profile of this person. And I can browse it. It's showing me the qualifiers, but it's also showing me this person's publications. So it's up to the app or visualization or website, whatever's created from Wikidata, it's up to that, the people who make that, to decide what knowledge to show. Yeah, Wikidata is just giving you a particular kind of statement relative to each person. To get a fuller picture of the kind of web of knowledge that person is in, you might have to look at other items. Yeah, this is pleasingly complex. When I'm doing presentations to management, I show them this view. I never go to the Wikidata view because this is more pretty and gives an overview picture. When I'm talking to kind of geeks and Wikipedians and people who might get into improving this, I go to the other view. But yeah, if you create items on Wikidata, then you send people the Reasonator link. So this is reasonator.toolforge.org, and it has its own search engine, so you can search stuff. But it's not an editing interface; it's a browsing interface. Yeah, I'll get rid of that, and then I think we can move on. So yeah, if we do the Wizard of Oz or the Moon or any of the kind of very much documented topics in Reasonator, there'll be kind of you'll get a huge amount of information. We've looked at both in my presentation and individually we've looked at examples of properties and discussed how we'd represent particular things. That, yeah, someone's occupation isn't what they are in Wikidata. It's just their occupation. What a person is a human being. But I'm going to go through adding some knowledge to Wikidata with the usual proviso that things slow or break or something goes wrong in the live demo. Let's just see what happens. I mean, I have looked at this just before, so I'm not going completely blind. When I set you free to work on improving Wikidata, it can be on anything interests you, and you might have your job or your hobbies or the thing you read Wikipedia about. But I'm going to provide a default thing for us to work on that you can, if you're interested in, and if you just want ideas. I've used Wikidata as an instrument to look at cultural bias on Wikipedia and cultural bias in different platforms. And what Waqas Ahmed, my colleague, and I found is lots of masterpieces, highly regarded pieces of art from non-Western cultures which weren't represented. And we made, by consulting books, say, about North African art or Indian art, my colleague Waqas created this, what we'd call a red list, a list of maybe things that should be represented on Wikidata and maybe Wikipedia, but are not. So I've put this into a Google Sheet, and I will share with you the short link to this Google Sheet. And I'm going to grab this artwork, this painting by an Indian artist, which I don't think, I'll be honest, I did test this and it's not on. But the first step in adding knowledge to Wikidata is testing if it's already there. So I'm going to do a search for Greek landscape. Painting by painting by Michael Finn, painting by Colin Graham Fredericks. These are all paintings, but they're paintings by, it seems like, European art or European culture. They're not this Indian painting. So, so it's not there. So I want to add it. Next question, what reliable information is there about this that I can use as references? And again, we're not looking for, this doesn't involve describing, summarizing. It doesn't involve like choice of adjectives. It's not like making a Wikipedia article. We're just looking for facts, dates, measurements. So I've done this Google search for this thing. There's actually a good bunch of results. I can even see the landscape. ArtNet is kind of independent. It's not a social media site. I Am Human, I think. But it's got the kind of things we're looking for, who this artwork is by, when it was made, what kind of medium it is, its measurements. And this is drawn from auction records or other sources. That's going to be useful. There's some news sites which report selling, so that this is backing up that it's that this is significant. It's significant in attaching a high auction price. It's significant in Indian culture. So this is something that exists, has properties, is within a particular culture regarded as an important bit of art, but it's not on Wikidata. A bunch of similarly titled things by other artists are. So I'm going to click Create New Item. Over on the left, we have this button, and I've said there's no, anyone can create a new item. The first thing I'll have to do is say what this is called. What is the name this is known by? I'm going to copy this string of text to speed myself up. So what this is called is the title of the painting, Greek Landscape. And then a description. This is really short. The description of William Shakespeare isn't kind of leading poet of the English language, iconic, but it's just like English poet and playwright. So it's a really short description, what on Wikipedia we call a short description. If there's different names that something is known by in this language, we can put them here. So that might be a performer with like a real legal name and a pseudonym and a professional name.
Could I add one thing about descriptions? Just
Yep.
because it came up in a Wikidata event just recently. When you do descriptions, unless it's a proper noun, you don't start them with a capital letter.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So yeah, if this was just painting by Adam C, it would be painting with a small p. So I've created an item, but this is useless, basically. This won't show up in any queries. This can't be used by AI or anything to answer any questions because it doesn't say what this thing is. It says it in kind of a description, but we're telling a computer with kind of no common sense, no understanding of the world. So we've got to put in really basic things. But, and I've said we're talking about an individual object. We need an instance of. So each statement is just like updating a Wikipedia page. You click edit, you make changes, then you save and publish. It's more finely grained, but each statement, and the statement is what we've been calling a triple, is created with this add statement button. And the first one I should add is instance of, and it's a painting. And we've mentioned that Wikidata distinguishes between things which happen to have the same name but are different, like the man Earl of Sandwich and the portrait painting Earl of Sandwich. So there's a bunch of things that could be called painting, like the activity painting, the art of painting, Oh, there's painting as in painting a house. There's painting as in painting a canvas for artistically. But I'm not talking about the activity. I'm actually talking about the physical thing, the artwork. And fortunately, that's the first one that comes up. But often, the thing I'm looking for might not be the first one that comes up. So it's worth reading these descriptions. But the thing I'm talking about is a painting. Um, and it suggests I've instinctively, because dyed in the wool Wikidata, I instinctively click the add statement button again. So that is now written. I don't have to wait to publish that. This is now on the public uh, Wikidata site. So we don't publish like the entire representation of the item. We publish the individual statements, the individual triples. So it suggests there are different properties I could put in. It suggests some. Well, I've got a name for the creator, which is Akbar Padamsee. Let's see. Akbar Padamsee, Indian artist. That's the right profession, and that's the right. So this is from 1960. That's the right time. I'm willing to bet that is the right person. We're going to reference this later on. I'm going to start by putting something basic. Um, an artwork can have a title. So the way I'd get suggestions for what kind of properties I can add, firstly from this auto suggest thing, which noticed I've said painting is now telling me the kind of properties that paintings usually have. But I've also mentioned getting a famous example. So maybe I could open another tab on the Mona Lisa or the Scream or the Wave at Kanoa, and then look at what properties that has, because that a famous painting is going to be really well documented, and then look for those properties. But what information do we have? 1960, so that's the date. If I type date of creation, okay, if I think of this as date of creation, and it suggests that what Wikidata calls this is inception. So the author suggests is really clever. Um, you might you might want to put kind of place of birth, and actually the property is birthplace, but Wikidata will see that you're trying to say birthplace, and it will suggest what it actually calls inception. So these triples, the value was another item. Painting is an item. This painter has an item, but inception, the value of an inception property is a date. And this is from 1960. So I've got a choice of, so I put in 1960 and it thinks I mean the year 1960, which is correct. But I could do a different level of precision. So if we know that it's from 1960, but not which year, I could type 1960s. But let me do that from the beginning. No, oh, because I clicked that. Okay, if I type 1960s, it works out that I mean a decade, but I don't mean a particular year. So it's quite clever like that. In this case, I just mean 1960, so it will settle precision. So precision could be a century. If I put in someone who was living and I didn't know their birth date at all, but I could say their birth. I don't want to put their birth date in because that's probably private data. That's probably data that could use to hack their online banking. But if I put their birth date was the 20th century, that kind of suggests that they're not a distant historical person. They're probably a living person now. So that's very vague but useful information. Anyway, this painting dates from 1960. I'm looking at it in its landscape art. I'm going to put, because I know that paintings often have a genre, and this is how we identify portraits, self-portraits genre. This is landscape art, so I'm going to type landscape. Landscape painting. Yeah, that's what this is. Um, if I knew where this what was being depicted here, I could put that in. This is a motion on canvas. Oh, this is a painting on canvas rather than on canvas board. So I'm going to type made from material. Yeah, it was canvas, wasn't it? It's on canvas. So I don't know how, maybe plastic emulsion has its own Wikidata representation. Maybe not. I'm just going to put the canvas so we're not talking about a wood panel and publish. I need to reference these now. So I put um, some statements in, but to count as knowledge, it's got to be verifiable. And the most useful property for a reference is reference URL. An alternative is stated in. So if something is stated in Encyclopedia Britannica, we could have that as a reference. We could have the book or a paper. Things can be inferred from other things, but for the great majority of references, I used reference URL because I'm referring to things that are available online or that I can find online. So I got this from this ArtNet page. I'm going to copy the URL for that page. And an online reference should have the date. So I can add quite complicated things to this one reference. So there could be page numbers, but I'm going to get the point at time at which that URL was retrieved. And it's filled that in. That might be a customization I've got. I've tried to turn off my customizations, but there is a gadget that when you select retrieved, puts in today's date. So that a reference URL plus a date, that identifies a piece of information. So that counts as a reference. Like I said, references can be as simple as that. They can be much more complicated. And then I'm going to do a trick to avoid something frustrating. I'm going to reload this page. Because what that enables me to do is copy this reference to the other statements. If I try to do that having just created the statements, it'll give me an error. But now that this whole thing has been written to Wikidata, I can expose the one reference I've got and copy it. And all these buttons appear on the other statements, allowing me to insert the same reference. So that just speeds things up a lot. I'm not having to put this URL in for every statement. Now I can go, so that's five statements about this painting. I mean, if I was really serious about it, if this was out of copyright, I might try and upload this image to, I mean, it's not out of copyright, but if I had an image that was free and could be on Wikimedia Commons, I could add image as a property, and then the image would appear as a thumbnail here. What other hills and ancient ruins? Something we could do with paintings, figurative paintings, is depicts. And that's kind of really interesting if you've got a lot of visual art. You want art that depicts a horse or art that depicts a house, and from different cultures. So depicting kind of how villas, yeah. So there's a source that says it depicts Greek villas. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of coverage of this, but this is enough to distinguish it from nothing. We've somebody looking for art from 1960 or art in the form of a painting or art. They're interested in this one artist. They want to get a complete catalogue of this art. This is going to be helpful to them. Villa. So villa, genus of insects. No. Family name. No. Villa. House. Yeah, the painting depicts, it actually depicts a number of them. We could even quantify this, but we don't have to. It's helpful just to say what kind of things are in this artwork. So I'm going to publish that. Publish. So it's kind of obvious. I could if I thought it was at all going to be controversial, I could, this is the blog. So there's news coverage of this. I'm going to leave. I think some things are definitely too obvious to need a reference. And I think that this painting depicts villas in Greece when it's titled Greek Landscape. I'm not going to bother. But you can see how, if I was really obsessed with this painting, I could spend a whole evening finding different links, different sources of information, and then painting in, actually, we've got measurements. Yeah, measurement is a different types of value. So 132 must be the height. Yeah. We know from the same source that the height, vertical length of an entity, so a measurement is always going to be a number and a unit. In this case, 132, and then it asks for a unit because it knows a height requires that. I'm going to put cm. And sometimes it suggests Cameroon as the first one, but now it's learning, it's suggesting centimeter as what I mean by cm, which is correct. So I'm going to publish that. And then if I try to paste in that reference there, it'll give an error, but I just got to reload the page. And then I can grab that reference I used and insert it there. So to recap the process, something you think should be represented in Wikidata, but it's not, you do a search to test, you have the create new item button. What you do after creating a new item is say what it is. Human being, painting, protein, whatever. And then you can add in the fact, and I think it's worth adding in a bunch of statements. And remember, each of these is the triple. The first part of the triple is the thing that this page is about. The second part of the triple is the property. And then the third part is a value, which could be a date, could be a measurement with a unit, could be another item. But you just repeat that add statement thing. So this might be, I can imagine this might be in a catalog somewhere. If it's been owned by a gallery or museum, it might be in a collection. So it might have an acquisition number, an inventory number. That's a property I could put in. I could obviously put in width. Now I've put in height. I could put in more about what it depicts. Yeah, if you just use your eyes for that rather than citing it, that's okay, because we do that a lot with art. It's very valuable to have information about art and Wikidata about what it depicts. So you can ask Wikidata for show me art that depicts a house, show me art that depicts a window, and then get all these different things from different cultures. I might like to connect this to an image. If there's an image of the subject in Wikimedia Commons, again, there's the property called image. But it's that process. Again, some purists will be annoyed at me leaving something without a reference, but that's okay. Sometimes there might be, if it's an author, they'll have an entry in library databases. If it's a person, living person, they might have social media. So I might put in, as you saw earlier, like LinkedIn links and Instagram links, whatever. So it's relative to the kind of thing you're trying to describe. And Wikidata will help you because you start adding a statement and it shows you the kind of properties that that this kind of thing usually has. So it recognizes I've entered the height, so I should probably enter the width. Is there a title? There is actually a title of this work. It's called Greek Landscape. So that is English. Some of these things are really basic. You might forget to put in that a person is a human being or that a charity is an organization. You might want to go straight to someone's occupation or something. But yeah, start off really basic. What kind of thing is this in the most kind of generic way? And then what interesting relations does it have to other things, like an artwork is related to its creator and what it depicts and the stuff it's made of. So that's my example. Let's set you loose. If you've never done this before, I want you to have a go at this now. So I will bring up on the page this ton URL, which links to this list. Okay, on this list, I'm gonna rest my cursor here. So hopefully when you go to this page, you'll see where I am. This ton URL will take you to a Google Sheet with all of those artworks I was talking about. I think most of which aren't on Wikidata, but there's other information. But if you want to do something not connected to art, and you want to do a counselor who won an award, or you want to do something scientific, or you want to do, go ahead and do that. It's the same procedure I've been showing you. Yeah, that is your task now. Yeah, create or improve a Wikidata item. That link is at the bottom of this screen. And you may have to do a Google search or a Google Scholar search or something to find something you can reference, so we can verify this thing exists and has these properties. You might be adding properties to something that already exists. Maybe the counselor is already in Wikidata, but not the fact they got an award. So you put an award isn't a statement. Or maybe you create a whole new thing that isn't on Wikidata yet with create the new item.
Can I make a suggestion if we're in the Google document that if you choose an item, maybe highlight it or put your name next to it or something so that we know that you're working on that one?
Yes, please. Yeah. So yeah, I think resting your cursor on a line will show a little indicator to other people, but maybe not. Yeah, if you
Right,
type
yes,
something,
of course. Yeah.
yeah, if you type something, I'll go and do that. Well, no, I'll keep this slide on the screen because this is important. Yeah, let's give people 10 minutes to just explore and do and try and do this, and then we'll kind of report back.
Martin, there is a question in the chat that I think I know the answer to, but I don't want to give the wrong answer. I don't want to speak over when people are working in UK to jump in the chat and ask and answer Eric's question.
If you Okay, as we come to the last few minutes, does anybody want to share what they've managed to achieve or not achieve? If you've added a statement to anything, you've improved Wikidata, and I sincerely thank you. Maybe you've added a statement, maybe you've added multiple statements, maybe you've created an item about something which didn't exist before. Could be a painting, could be something completely different. So yeah, your task now, what have you done? And are you inspired? Could you see yourself doing this more in the future? Um, like I said, there's tens of thousands of people with this as a hobby because they're obsessed with an actor or they're obsessed with a painter or they're obsessed with the moon so they go in and make sure that Wikidata is good for that thing.
So because Karen has added Whirling Dervishes by Mahmoud Said.
Yay!
And because we did this in campaign events, and I used the collaborative contributions little gadget, I can see that so far we have we have edited Wikidata. We have edited 17 different articles,
Oh, that's great.
and there have been 58 edits. I'm new to reading this
Wow.
particular bit, but this is fantastic
This
for
is a great team. And we've culturally diversified Wikidata, I hope you realize,
yeah.
because these are all paintings outside the Western canon. We're restoring some balance. Uh, oh, great progress. Anybody done something that's not paintings? Or anybody done anything specific? Or anybody had any like difficulties that something like didn't make sense with how they thought about it? Because like we've been saying, it's kind of a particular way of thinking about knowledge, and it's not quite a language, and it's not quite computer coding. It's something to get used to.
We've had a couple of queries about how to add images, which I've been answering in the chat. We've also had Olubasola has tried to add a depicts statement, but there was no article for the person, for the princess who was depicted. So this leads us back into the conversation that we were talking about there about you need to kind of go down the rabbit hole and then create that article, create that item,
Yeah.
sorry, so that you can link back to it. This is this is yeah,
So it can lead onto a chain which leads to
lead on to so many things.
other
Yeah.
things, and you're making more and more improvements. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Kirsty's been working on a data set about playwrights.
Ooh,
Still cleaning. That one's I know a little bit about that one because we've talked outside of this event, but that's a really interesting data set and I think will be a really good addition to Wikidata.
so you're
Um
not quite in scope of this session, but there are ways to do bulk uploads of
yes.
data, to create
Yeah.
1,000 items in one go, or to add 1,000 statements to different existing things. So that's a more involved thing. It involves spreadsheet tools, but and I do that in my job. Um, yeah, and we can help people with that if they want to explore that further. So if you want to create 1,000 items, you don't have to go entirely through the process we've just been going through. There's a shortcut.
Yeah. And who else have we got some? Oh, there's loads of things coming in the chat.
Okay.
Johanna's been adding Moomin facts. Yes.
Yay! Hooray for movements! Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
oh, MFT, I'm sorry, 'cause I can't see your name, has added Alfred Fagon Awards to Roy Williams achievements, but no luck adding the
Great.
actual date or reference. But you're getting there. Brilliant. Oh, I see. And then people are helping each other out in the chat to find references. Brilliant.
Great.
I shall. We're coming up on 8 o'clock, so I will hand back to yourself, Maureen.
Yeah, so there's another event this week, which is about how you actually get data out. Wikidata exists so that people can ask questions, but you have to ask questions in a particular language. So we're going to go into that. On Wikidata itself, linked on the homepage, is introduction, which kind of covers the basics of statements and items and what we've been talking about in this session. So it's there for when you need a refresh. Stay in touch. I know I see a lot of people who are part of the Wikimedia UK community, but stay in touch. Follow Wikimedia UK uh, on whatever platform. I'm my username is Martin Poulter without a space on the Wikimedia projects, on English Wikipedia, on Wikidata, obviously. There's a weekly newsletter which says what properties, what people are doing with Wikidata, what projects. There might be kind of a cultural diversity project. There might be like a manuscripts project, a lighthouse project I discovered today. Get all the world's lighthouses and their locations. Yeah, if you want to start query, well, we'll discuss querying next time, but you can ask the community. You can ask the Wikidata community. You can ask the Wikimedia UK community. You can ask me, depending, and I can at least give you pointers. Or you can find out to do it yourself next week. But so this has been amazingly productive from what Sarah's just said, and I hope you feel like you've achieved something because you have. You've improved Wikidata, and it's not as contentious as Wikipedia. It's more straightforward because you're not thinking about the phrasing of the facts and the adjectives you use, and if you're being unneutral, it's all neutral facts. And yeah, fun hobby's more fun when you do it as part of a community. Really believe that. Thanks for making that true this evening.
Lots of thanks to you, Martin, in the chat. And yeah, thank you. I've dropped my email address into the chat a couple of times, but I will, just to answer a couple of the questions, I will send the link to Martin's slides and also to the recording for this session to folks through that campaign events thing. So in the same way that you got the Zoom link, I'll be able to email you. If you're one of the people that doesn't have an email address associated with that account, do just drop me an email. You can get me at Sarah, Sara dot Thomas at wikimedia.org.uk. And thank you so much, Martin. Round of virtual applause for you.
Thank
But
you
yeah,
all. Thank
applause
you.
in
It's
the
been
venue.
brilliant.
It's been great. Thank you. Thanks so much, folks. Hope you have a really lovely evening. For those of you that are going to join us next Monday, that Zoom link should be in place just now. But yeah, any queries, please do just let me know. Thanks so much.